Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I mentioned that I was thinking of doing a Duping the Vibes of the Pat McGrath and Bridgerton collection and a Get Ready With Me that I did recently, and a lot of people said that they wanted to see that, so that's what we're doing today. Before I get into it, I just want to say thank you for 1,000 subscribers. Watch people unfollow me and then I won't have 1,000 anymore, but I've made it to this point at one point in time, and I just want to say thank you so much. It feels like, you know, obviously I'm not doing this blah blah blah, blah for followers or whatever. I mean, I am to a certain extent, obviously, but it feels like a milestone, and I really do appreciate every single one of you who is here and actually watches the content that I put out. It's kind of insane, but yeah, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate it a lot. But Pat McGrath and Bridgerton. So I wanted to do this mostly because normally when I see something that's releasing that I really want, basically, Duping the Vibes doesn't necessarily always like replace the want of that thing for me. But in this instance, I felt like I wanted mostly the palette, but also the like lightest highlighter. I felt like I had, when I saw it, I was like, number one, why do I want this palette? First off, because of the like obviously blue, beautiful special shade. I know I love Pat McGrath's special shades a lot, and I just wanted it. I was like, I'm sure that if I have it, I'll be like, wow, I don't have anything else like this. It's so beautiful and so special, but like I can't buy an $80 palette for one shade. And two, I knew, like, I had envisioned the looks that I would create with this palette, and honestly, I was like, realistically, I can probably get something similar with stuff I already have, and based on the shades that were in the palette, I probably would create a lot of the same looks, like maybe one or two similar looks. And I don't think that dark, like matte, mauvey, plummy shade would be as deep as I would want it to be based on swatches and stuff. So I was like, well, if I would have to reach in for another palette anyway, let's just try to dupe the vibes. And I feel like I'm pretty confident that I can get like similar looks to what I would want to do with the Pat McGrath and Bridgerton palette with what I already have. This is, again, duping the vibes. I'm not trying to necessarily dupe like every single shade that's in this palette. I kind of just want to create a look that I imagine would look similar or have similar vibes to like what I would want to do with that palette. And then we'll do highlighter after. So let's maybe just start off with the special shade, because that's like what I feel like everyone kind of wants. That's the main like pull of this palette, I feel like. So the first shade that came to mind that I thought that I had was ACI 18 from the Adept Plain Jane palette. It is maybe a little bit more purple shifting, but it definitely has like that blue tone to it, and it's not super opaque, which I think is similar to the shade in the Pat McGrath palette as well. The other shade, let me get it, that came to mind was from Cleona, although I don't think that it's gonna be quite the same. No, this is, I think, has too strong of a base, the shade Grisaille, just again because it has that blue shift, but there's a lot of plum in here in the base, so I don't think that is gonna necessarily work. I think ACI whatever by Adept is gonna be realistically my best bet. I also thought maybe, I think this is gonna be too pink, but Reserve number 1 from Shine by Esty. I thought might give similar vibes because it has a pretty like strong blue shift. Actually, when you swatch it front facing, it looks like it could be maybe similar, but it has a really strong pink shift as well, which I don't believe that the Pat McGrath shade does. And then one that a lot of people brought up as well was JD Glow Good God, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if this is gonna be too purple though. That's kind of what I heard, although it looks like it could be. Maybe I will use that. I'm still kind of leaning toward the Adept shade though, but this definitely looks like it could be a contender. It's right now it's between this and the Adept shade. But like all are gonna give similar, I think, effects. Maybe not exact, but similar. I also wonder, this is Looksy Cookie Dough. It has a similar look to the Shine by SD shade. Has a strong pink shine, not as strong. Actually, this could be the one, maybe. It looks a little bit pink in the pan, but when you swatched it, it definitely looks pretty blue. And it doesn't have a strong base to it, and it doesn't have as strong of a pink shift as Reserve Number 1 does. So this is also a contender for sure. And then for the like mauve-y shimmer, this was actually pretty difficult for me to choose. I think for me the closest that I'm gonna have in terms of like tone and stuff are from the Sydney Grace and Tim Talia palette. So this is Quintessence, and the shade My Constellation I think could be a contender, just because it has like a mauviness to it, although I'm not sure that might be too dark. And obviously it's not going to be Pat McGrath formulation, but we all know that. And then this is the Radiant Reflection. So I wonder if either Sumptuous Serendipity or Phosphines might be similar. Maybe Phosphines could be the one. So this is Sumptuous Serendipity. So similar to whatever that one was, maybe a bit pinker. You know what? I actually think that Phosphines is going to be the closest because I think these are too dark. So Phosphines it is. I had other ones, but I think I'm going to use this shade. And then mattes, I'm not too fussed over the like satiny shade, so I'm not really gonna care about that one too much. The mattes, again, I feel like it's not super important to me to like get exact dupes, but I know that I have shades that are similar. Again, one of the first ones that popped out to me was Dreamy by Luxie. It is a like peachy pinky matte. Maybe this is like a little bit too peach, I want to say. I also thought that from the Ooh La La palette from ColourPop, the shade Poodle, actually I feel like that's more it, because I think the shade is more pink, so I'm going to use that. And then for the like brighter like satiny matte shade, what really stood out to me as what I thought I had that's similar and what I would want to use is Heartthrob by Luxie. It might not be, you know what, it looks definitely deeper and more red. Maybe something like Dance Party from the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe Volume 2 palette, because it's a little bit pinker and a little bit brighter. I'm gonna go with this one. This one I think is actually a bit too dark and maybe too red, not quite as bright. Again, I know it's not going to be exactly the same, but it's kind of just like the vibe, you know? And then for the darker plum matte, I know that I would want something darker and that I would reach for something else. So I was like, let's skip that and go right in with the shade that I think I would pull. Or at least a shade that I think I would, like one of the shades that I would realistically use. I feel like I could be more zoomed in. Okay, well, whatever. Or is that too close? Anyway, I'm gonna take a shade, pull a shade from the Blend Benny Dollhouse palette, which is new to me, but I feel like the shade Plume is really a shade that I would want to pull. It's like dark and plummy. I don't know. So I think that this is kind of the color story that I'm gonna go with. Again, not the exact same, but it's what I'm gonna use. So, okay. Let's zoom in and do an eye look. You know what, I actually am gonna use the Adept shade, but I'd be really curious to know if you have the Pat McGrath palette and the Bridgerton palette. Nope. You have the Pat McGrath palette and the Plain Jane palette. How does ACI 18 and the Special shade, how do they compare? So the shade, or the look that I have envisioned in my mind, is kind of just like really blown out and sparkly and pink and delicious. So I'm gonna start with the shade Poodle from the ColourPop palette. And I'm gonna run this through my crease. Again, just really blow it out. Okay, and then I'm gonna take the Dance Party shade from the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill palette. Again, realistically, I know it's not gonna be exactly the same, but it's just like the bright pink that has like almost a bit of like fuchsia red to it. What I imagine the shade looking like. I mean, the other shade might have a little bit more realistically like red. I might not have an exact dupe, but yeah, the one that I thought was gonna be really spot on, maybe that would be better. I don't know, but it's also kind of just like what I'm imagining the palette to be. I feel like Hannah Louise Poston. I never really do this, but I mean, obviously as well, like Morphe and ColourPop formulas are not gonna be Pat McGrath. I know like a lot of people think Pat McGrath is really like overhyped and stuff, but I like adore her eyeshadow formulas. And I just like ColourPop and Morphe, but sometimes you just got to accept that you can't buy everything. But I hope that if you bought the Pat McGrath palette, you love it. Alright, then I'm going to take this Plume shade, where is it? Right here, from the Dollhouse palette by Blend Benny. And I'm just going to deepen my outer corners and my crease with this. Like I said, I'm not doing anything crazy, but the look that I kind of think that I would do with this Pat McGrath palette is very similar to this, or at least one of the looks that I would do. See, look at that shade. And Blend Benny too, it does have a really, really great formula. Although this is the first time that I'm using this Plume shade. Okay, so now it's time for my lid shades. I'm going to take, oh, this was the wrong palette. Okay. I'm going to take the shade Phosphines in the like center part of my eye, and then I'm going to take, I've decided I'm going to take Adept AC, what is it? Yeah, ACI 18, and put that like in the front and like really like buff it out and like spread it around, you know? First though, I'm going to take the NYX glitter primer and just put that all over my lid where I want the shadows to go. Okay, so now I'm going to take Phosphines. Again, probably not exact, but this was actually a shade that I had trouble like trying to dupe in my collection, which is interesting because I was like, ugh, I have a mauvey, like mauvey, plummy, metallic, easy, and then now I'm like, do I? And this is my problem. This is my problem. But you know, this is actually a really, really beautiful shimmer, like metallic formula, because pretty sure that it's just like a, not regular metallic, but you know what I mean. It's not like a special shade, it's just a metallic formula in the Pat McGrath palette. Okay, that's my camera cut off and I don't know when or where it happened, so I'm just gonna go over what I did on this eye and delete it if it's already been documented. Then I'm gonna take ACI 18, put this in the front part, and I'm gonna layer this over the Sydney Grace Metallic. Okay, then I'm going to take the shade Dance Party again and run this, like buff it over the front, and then also stamp this and blend this into my lid shades as well. And then take Plume again and deepen my outer corners. And then I'm gonna run this over the front part of my crease again, just to make sure that the like dimension is there. And I really don't mind if sparkle kind of gets everywhere. And then before I go back in with the shimmers, I'm just gonna take Poodle from the ColourPop palette again and very lightly run this over the edge just to help with blending. And then first I'm going to take the Phosphines shade from the Sydney Grace palette and intensify this on my lid. I want to bring it up also a little bit higher, so I feel like, yeah, there we go. And then take the ACI 18 shade from Sydney Grace, nope, from Adept, and intensify this as well, just kind of blending it everywhere in the front part of my eye, basically. Beautiful. Again, probably not as like truly magical and sparkly as Pat McGrath, but definitely gives me the effect that I think I would want or imagine that I would get from the Pat McGrath palette. So I'm just gonna quickly do like pretty much the same thing on my lower lash line. Let me get a little brush. I'm just gonna take the shade Dance Party and just run this all underneath my eyes and blow it out. And then I'm gonna take Plume from the Blend Bunny palette and deepen my lower lash line. And then I'm gonna blend it out with the shade Poodle from ColourPop. Now I'm gonna take ACI 18, just put it on the front part of my lower lash line. Ooh, look at that, layered over a darker shade. And then I'm gonna freestyle a little bit on my inner corners. And I'm gonna take Reserve Number 1 from Shine by SD. It's just like one of my favorite go-to like sparkly light inner corner shades. I'm just gonna spray that and put it on my inner corner. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of that on my brow bone as well, just to, oops, shit. You gotta be very careful with these shades. And then put it just to really go for it in terms of sparkle situation on this day. And then my last step for my eyes, I'm going to take the shade Stitched, which is just this matte black, and put this on my outer corners. Okay, for highlighter, I feel like, again, I don't know if I have like an exact dupe Probably not. I'm sure it's glorious and beautiful. And if I had it, I would be like, I don't have anything else like this. But I do have a lot of highlighters that I really love, that I just have so many highlighters that it's really, really, really difficult for me to justify spending $80 on a highlighter. But this took more self-control entirely than the palette did. So first off, obviously Fenty Beauty Diamond Balm. I mean, it's, again, not necessarily like a formula dupe, but it's a highlighter that I know I love and is beautiful and wet looking and so, so special. I mean, you probably can't really see that on there. Similar, the Colored Rain and Power highlighter and blush duo, but this highlighter in here, very similar formula to the Fenty Beauty Diamond Balm. Not quite the same, but gives a very similar effect on the cheeks. It's a little bit more like opaque and less just sheer sparkle. I mean, one of my favorite highlighters, Benefit Cookie. Again, not a formula dupe, and it's different from these two, but it's like such a beautiful bright highlight. One of my absolute faves. Natasha Denona Super Glow. One of my favorite highlighters, and is so, so beautiful. Maybe a little bit more subtle than these other ones. And then ColourPop Flexitarian is one that I've been using a ton recently. Super, super bright. Probably can't even see any of those. And then the one I think I'm going to use today that is so, so special, and I do not get enough use out of it at all, is the Artist Couture Diamond Glow Powder. This is in the shade Coco Bling. It's an old one that was much raved about, but it's just so pretty and so sparkly and like makes your face look glossy and wet. And like I said, I haven't used this in a while, so I was like, let me remind myself of what I have and just put this on my face today. And then for blush, I know that I love Pat McGrath's blush formula, but the palette was never really something that I really wanted. I know that the highlighter would be way too dark for me. And the blush shades in and of themselves, while I know that I love the Pat McGrath formula and I wouldn't be opposed to owning them, it wasn't something that was like super calling to me. And I already have so many blushes that I know that I just adore. So I am going to use the NARS Hot Tryst Cheek Palette. This was a holiday release a long time ago, but I know, like, I love this blush formula, and I mean the packaging is giving luxury. I'm gonna mix these two shades at the top, this light pink and this like fuchsia one. I think the shades are Swindle and Untamed, but you can't, this is an old product that you cannot buy anymore anyway. And I'm just gonna use this as blush. Okay, so I'm going to finish up my face now. We've concluded the duping portion of this video, and then I will be back to show you the finished look. Okay, and this is the finished look. It's been many hours since I actually, I have a mirror here, don't look at there. Since I actually finished this look. I've had quite a day thus far, and I'm just on the end of my lunch break now. On my lips, I used the Too Faced Melted Matte Liquefied Lipstick in the shade Granny Panties. I feel like I'll put it up here. Editing me is gonna hate me, but I did do a look that's pretty similar to this in my Cliona video. I did a 10 looks with my video with my Cliona like glitter multi-chromes, and I did a look very similar to this where I did like raspberry in my crease and then like a bluey shade like all over my lid. Honestly, I love this look, but that's why I did a purple lip, because I wanted to do something that made it a little bit different from the other look I did. Again, as I said in the beginning when I was doing my makeup, it's, I'm sure, not exactly the same as, you know, the look that you would get from the actual Pat McGrath palette, but that's not what the point of Duping the Vibes is, okay? The point is to get a look that, you know, satisfies my urge, and I do feel that to a certain extent this does satisfy my urge for the look that I imagine I would create with the Pat McGrath palette. It hasn't quite satisfied my urge for the highlighter, but it is good to remind myself of all the beautiful highlighters that I have, and therefore I do not need to spend $80 on a highlighter even though it looks glorious. You know, sometimes it's important to just remind ourselves of that. Let me know if you guys have any like single shadow dupes that you think are like really good dupes for any of the shades in the Pat McGrath palettes, or have you duped the vibes? Has this helped you dupe the vibes in your own mind, or I don't know. I actually really enjoyed doing this. It's the first kind of Duping the Vibes video that I've ever done. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. It is literally crazy to me. Thank you so much, and I would love to see you in my next video. Bye.